is a representative from BNY Mellon, who is going to be talking a little bit about his career path, talking about how you can kickstart your career path with BNY Mellon, and a little bit about just finance in general. Without further ado, let's give him a round of applause.
All right, well, it's a pleasure to be here. I know that I've met a number of you here on a couple of different occasions throughout the day. I can't believe it's 4 o'clock already. I feel like I just got here, but I know that we've had some good, meaningful conversations, and look forward here to really wrapping things up here with you. Without trying to create any disappointing expectations here, there was 2 other folks who were supposed to be joining me here. George Emanuel, who has put this presentation together here. The last time we were here, matter of fact, I think it might have been for one of these meetings. George did this presentation, and I'm going to do my best to do this and try not to skip over as many things as I can. George has some slides that are a little bit unique to George, so I may have to skip through a few of them, but I think we'll ultimately get the point across. And there's at least one slide in there that I'd like to use because it'll kind of reinforce some of the things that we had talked about throughout the day. The other individual who was going to be here was Christy Heidkamp. Christy is our recruiter. She was here with us the last time as well. These are all weather-related issues, plus, well, weather-related for George. You know, it's Pittsburgh. They get a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice. You know, here we can get 5 feet of snow and still make it to work on time. But Christy is also transitioning to a different role with BNY Mellon. However, whomever replaces her will be sure to convey that. I have that note made up here because I know that there were a couple of you I talked with and wanted to make sure that you got in touch with Christy as far as making sure having a contact to keep in mind or keep in touch with employment opportunities that we may have. I am Paul Wojcik. I manage our local Erie office here at BNY Mellon Wealth Management. Just a quick story for those of you who did not hear this. Our history here in Erie came from, we were part of what was then Mellon Bank. And in 2002, if I've got the year right, Mellon Bank decided to get out of the traditional banking business. That is, they sold all their branches and got rid of and along with that sale, sold off all of their corporate or business lending business. That sale went through to Citizens Bank back then. So when you see Citizens Bank in town, those were all former Mellon Bank branches. It was a great thing for us locally because we were not part of that sale. So we were this little trust office that was still Mellon Bank, so to speak. And we got to move down to the beautiful offices at 100 State Street overlooking the bay. So it's been a real nice move for us since then. And then in 2007, the Bank of New York and Mellon decided that they would merge. And after what I'm sure was hundreds of thousands of dollars to consultants later, came up with this creative name, BNY Mellon. My role at BNY Mellon is exclusive to wealth management. And if I were to break up our organization, I would tell you that there's 2 businesses that we have. There's asset servicing, and then there's asset management. Our wealth management business is a piece of the asset management business. We work with wealthy individuals, wealthy organizations, charities and endowments, and in short, our core business is managing their money in the financial markets. Whereas the asset servicing side of the business is more of a transaction type of a based business. We are the intermediary or the custodian for some pretty obscene numbers that I'll show you here in just a minute. As the saying goes, a third of the world's assets sleep at their BNY Mellon's roof every night. This is a picture of George. It's a picture of Christy. As we mentioned before, you know, we are the investment management company doing transactions all over the world. I want to get you to this one slide here. I'm trying to, okay, here's some numbers just to put this in perspective. When you look at the money that comes through or the assets that come through the organization every day. We're responsible for over $30 trillion with a T. I don't know if anybody did U.S. GDP. It's a national debt, pretty close to that number. It's 15 trillion. So $30 trillion worth of the world's assets, which is double the U.S. GDP, we are responsible for. We manage, not necessarily through wealth management, but through all of our wealth management or asset management subsidiaries, including wealth management. We manage 1.7 trillion. Again, that's 1.7 with a T. So some really big numbers in the greater scheme of things of the organization. Speak a little bit more and tell you a bit more about wealth management and the role that I play. My job is I work directly with clients face to face. I'm responsible for their accounts. I'm responsible for allocating their assets. I'm responsible for advising them. I work as part of a team. I have a couple of folks in my office who support me and help me to facilitate transactions for our clients on a daily basis. And then also when we get into certain other transactions that might not be my expertise or higher level planning, I've got other team members that I can pull in and help out to make sure that we're getting experts with our clients as best as we can. This is a slide here that I thought was of interest. If you're looking for careers with BNY Mellon, particularly in wealth management, these are all of our offices across the country. There's even, it's harder to see on there, but you can see we even have an office in London. But bigger offices or bigger presence where wealth management exists, you'll find us in Pittsburgh, of course. It's the largest BNY Mellon campus of all. We also, in wealth management, we have a strong presence in New York City, Philadelphia, and as I mentioned already, Pittsburgh. Those are some of our, Boston. Those are our bigger wealth management offices. The other offices that you see out here are markets that we've decided to enter into where we see opportunities for wealth to be created. And some of the places, as you would expect, Southern California, we've got an office in San Francisco and more recently entered the Menlo Park area. And if you're not familiar with Menlo Park, if you Google that and look on a map, you'll find a lot of Silicon Valley there. Apple's headquarters are very close by. And then interestingly enough, for those, I'm sure you would find this of interest, just about on every other corner is a venture capital firm there. So they know that that's where the ideas are coming from, and those folks are sitting there waiting there to provide the funding for these opportunities that are being created out there. Interesting story with that market, whether this is good news or bad news. Challenges are keeping that office properly staffed because it's such a high cost of living. It's very difficult for people to find affordable housing close to the office. So it's a particular challenge, a unique challenge at that. Just a couple of other areas I think about. As you would imagine, there's a lot of wealth in Florida. A lot of retirees move down there. So we've got a very nice presence down there, and of course, as I mentioned before, a number of offices here on the East Coast. A number of folks had asked about job searches or job opportunities or internship opportunities. Everything that you would need or wherever to find to do that search is right here. So it's bnymellon.com/careers. I had mentioned on some of the earlier conversations that I think if you just Google BNY Mellon careers, it'll probably get you here. And I tried it on my phone, and in fact, it was close enough. But all you got to do is remember the additional .com/careers, and that should get you to where you need to be. Let's skip over this one. So George thought it would be important to talk to you about some resume tips here. I'm a fan of a book called Knock 'em Dead. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's a book I bought a long time ago when I was doing my job search. I found it to be extremely helpful. And one of the takeaways that I had from that is when you're preparing your resume is not designed to get you the job. Don't have that expectation of preparing that resume to get the job. It's a step-by-step process, just as your education has been a step-by-step process. You went to grade school to prepare you for high school. You went to high school to prepare you for college. You're now in college preparing yourself for a job, okay? Grade school didn't prepare you for a job. Grade school prepared you for high school. High school didn't prepare you for a job. High school prepared you for college. Resume is the same way. The resume prepares you or get the role of the resume is to get you an interview. The role of the interview is then to get you the job, okay? Think of it in a step-by-step process. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the things about a resume or a whole bunch of things about interviewing, because I'm going to imagine that the resources you have here are top shelf, top notch, and the folks are going to give you some very good guidance there. But again, ultimately, you want to keep in mind that process. And when you're preparing that resume, you're trying to sell yourself to the person who's going to be looking at that to make them want to say, I need to talk to this person. Okay? So keep that in mind. And when you sit down for that interview, you want to sell them on why you're ready for that job. Pages here. George talks about networking. So again, the questions and a lot of the themes that came about here throughout the day. Those of you who have had other jobs, I think somebody I met talked about doing some caddying at a country club and meets business people, or has met business people there. If you do an internship somewhere and have an opportunity to interact with those folks, these are networking opportunities. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all you need to know is know the right person, and that's your key to get a job. It's not. At the end of the day, people who are doing hiring are hiring people to fill a job and who can do that job and can do that job best. Fact of the matter is, if that position's open and whomever they're looking to hire, that's somebody that they want. They want to hire that person yesterday, because every day that goes by is a lost day of opportunity. It's a lost day of productivity. It's more stress on the rest of the teammates picking up the slack there. So really what it comes down to is that you need to be able to do the job and show that why you can do the job and that you're the best person for that job. The networking certainly helps you get that opportunity or find out about that opportunity, or perhaps even get you that interview. But bottom line is if you can't deliver, that none of that's really going to matter. So I encourage you to focus on that resume, keep an eye in mind what that resume is supposed to do, work on interviewing, prepare for that interview, and network as much as you can, whether that's through a job, whether that's through family, whether that's through friends, whether that's through an internship, whether that's through the business context that your professors here have as well, or situations like this. I know that we'll have other speakers here. And I was able to hop on my email, and I thought it was great. I already had a bunch of emails from the people that I had talked with. I think I even had a couple of LinkedIn requests. So real good stuff. It's just the way that you want to do that. Keep in mind too, you think about this process of looking for a job and searching for a job, and I equate it a lot to the role that we have. Everything really comes down to relationships. Now, I know that you're going to say, well, if I haven't met anybody, how can I have that relationship with them? Well, you're going to meet people along the way, and when you're doing that networking, you're looking to build those relationships to maintain those contacts so that you can find out about opportunities or get an opportunity to at least interview for your job. And then as you're going through that interview, you're looking to build that relationship with that interviewer. It's a short period of time, but it's definitely something that you've got to think about along the way. The key to my business, the key to this financial services business that I'm in and that I work with people face to face is it's relationships. It's all about relationships. There will always be a provider out there with better investment returns. There will always be a provider out there with a better cost structure. There will always be a provider out there with a more marquee or better known name. But at the end of the day, the folks that you work with, you've got to build that strong relationship, because that will keep them as your clients as long as possible. And keep that in mind too as you're out looking for jobs. All right, so couple of other things here to think about, and I may not go through everything, every page here, but when sitting down with an interview, say you're already there, you've got to be prepared. As a matter of fact, over-prepare. You never know what you're going to be asked, and the more prepared that you can be, the better off you're going to be. I'm going through this in my household right now. My wife is in the process of going through a job search, and fortunately, she has the time that right now she's not working, so she's dedicated her time now. Her job right now is working on that. And when I come home, we talk about things that she's been working on and the things that she's been preparing. And she goes, I'm feeling like I'm over preparing. And I said, that's exactly what you want to do. You don't know what you're going to be asked. I would much rather walk into a situation, be prepared to answer 10 questions and have them only ask me 5, rather than walk in there, be prepared to answer 5 questions and then have them ask me 6. So there's nothing wrong with over preparing. Don't go crazy to the extent that you drive yourself crazy, but be over prepared. You never know what you're gonna come up with. This page talks a little bit more about that as well, being prepared. The credibility here, and talks about doing your homework. Doing your homework boils down to a number of different areas. It's one thing to know about the company. That pretty much goes without saying. You want to do that homework, and I think we're all very fortunate now to live in a world that we've got the internet. We can find a lot of information very easily and very quickly. So one, you want to make sure that you have that preparation done. 2, you've got to be able to be prepared to talk about what your concerns, your questions. Walking in there solely expecting to have a one-way street or a one-way type of conversation probably isn't going to cut it. Yeah, the interviewer is going to have a lot of questions for you, and they're going to walk you through those things. But at the same time, too, you want to show that level of engagement, that you've thought about things and that there were things that you came across that you don't know the answers to. So you want to be able to have that kind of a dialogue with them. But again, the only way you're going to be able to do that is preparing yourself and doing that homework to make sure that you know what to ask. Some of these things go without saying. I mean, I've met a number of you today, and I mean, some of the things I would just come around sitting there with the suit on and everything. I'm like, good for you guys. I mean, this is great. I'm not saying that's a requirement or anything, but you know, you want to. A saying that a friend of mine gave me not too long ago was be before you become. And if you think about it, it's pretty simple. You know, if in fact you're looking to plan a career or looking to prepare for a job interview, well, prepare for that. Be that part before so. Make yourself more comfortable. Demonstrate that I can do this. Or if you're in your career and you're looking to be to be promoted, well, it's not just enough to say, well, I've done everything that's been expected of me now in this job. I deserve, or I'm ready for the promotion. Show that you're able to do that next level work. Do that next level work. So that way you can demonstrate, not only am I ready for it, I've already shown you that I can do it. So be before you become. That one in mind. I like that one. I like this one here from George. Practice perfect. He's got a couple of things that he's written down here. One, I think, is the first one. As I read this, this is something that if somebody asks you, what I do, or if you're sitting down with a prospect, what is it that you do to help me out? This is what I do. He's got it prepared. He knows what it recited to you if he was here. Next one, I think it is more so if somebody says, "Tell me about what it is you do. Tell me about your firm." I've got that prepared as well. So as you were out for that job search, somebody says, "Well, what kind of work are you looking for?" You better be able to rattle that off. That will impress people, knowing that you are that well thought out, you are that rehearsed, that practiced. You know exactly what you want. It just displays that kind of confidence that I think a lot of folks will be looking for and find very helpful. I'm going to skip over this slide. I guess if I look at it, I know this is a whiteboard that George has down in his office. Thoughts matter, words matter, action speaks loudest. So I think, we take away from that, we know that actions speak louder than words. So again, demonstrating what it is that you can do throughout your career is really what's going to matter when it comes down to everything. Talk about building relationships and leaving a good impression with folks. Talks about here telling stories. I can't. It's interesting that throughout the day, as I was talking to everyone, every time I turn around and tell some story, as trivial as some of them might have been, I could tell the attentiveness or the engagement jumped up. People like real stories, but I mean, not a fake story. You tell a story about what a true experience that you have, and as it relates to the situation, it's a great way to connect with people. So keep in mind that as you're interviewing or throughout your career and working up the chain, that being able to tell stories and find those ways to tell stories and build those relationships are going to be important. When you're wrapping up your interview or wrapping up your meetings with your clients, always tell them thank you. Follow up on all the little things that you talk about. It all goes a long way. Those things really matter. And I think that is it for our presentation here. I hope that I've done a decent enough job of kind of going through those things. I know that we've had a number of opportunities to sit back and talk with a number of you. I see a lot of new faces in here. And while we're maybe only halfway through here, I'd be happy to open up to any questions. I'm sure that there'll be more here. So I'll just try to operate that way as best as we can here. So I know this isn't a shy group, so somebody's got to break the ice here. And then once we get that started, then we'll get it going.
There was one thing you had up there. It was called "Ask for an Information Interview."
Mm-hmm.
How was that? I assume that's different than the regular interview.
Right.
What was that?
So, and that's part of your homework of trying to find out more information, more backup, so that you're better prepared. And again, I think that shows that level of interest that you're not just showing up and saying, "All right, here's my resume. Start asking away. I'll tell you about myself, and then you can hire me." So again, it shows that level of engagement that you want to know more. You're that interested.
What about your job do you enjoy most? What drives you to wake up every morning, go to the office, do what you do?
In terms of that, right now, I'm so busy I can't even begin to tell you. But in all seriousness, when it comes down to that, and I've told this, I think I mentioned this to a number of folks already too. I want you all to know that you're in this. You're in such a very good position here that you have an institution that's providing you with some very specific guidance, and it has turned you on to some real world aspects of what's out there for you. So hats off to you all in the sense that you are very much decided, on a specific career path. Some may be more focused than others, but you're not sitting here with I'm going to make a decision from here. You're at least making it from here, and maybe even less. That's not how I work. This career kind of found me, but at the same time, when you're in that position of responsibility and the work that you have to do, what drives me now is making sure that I can do the best job that I can for my clients, that I don't let them down, and that they know that I'm here for them, and that they put their trust in the very right place. I enjoy the job now. I mean, I feel like that this is a career. I've felt the progression as much as maybe wanting to or having opportunities outside of just this locale. I love it here. I'm happy to be here. I never thought that I'd have the position that I have. I think I told a story that I remember several years ago sitting there with my boss saying, "Hey, I see myself sitting in this chair doing this job, maybe with another different, maybe with a different pot of clients. But this is what I want to do. I only want to get better at this. So this works just fine for me." A couple years later, he resigned. Somebody else resigned, and somebody had to run the office, and that fell to me. So I will give you that lesson as well. You just don't know what's going to happen in your career. I don't want you to be left with the impression that don't take control of it by any means, but do take control of it. Make sure that you are prepared almost at all times for the next level, because you never know when that next level is going to present itself to you. I know that, a lot of folks look at it and say, well, I'm going to be in control of it. I'm going to continue to move up as best as I can. Sometimes you have to wait for those opportunities to present themselves. And if you're not ready for it when the opportunity comes to knock it, you may have to wait a lot longer, because you don't know when that will present itself. So again, just be prepared as you can. Be prepared as you can for that next level, provided that's what you're looking for.
Would you be willing to go in a little bit more into the day-to-day, what you specifically do, what your team does, types of clients you guys are currently targeting, what you see, things like that?
Sure.
Just to give some clarification.
So the kind of clients that we look at, and this is sort of the low end of the spectrum, a couple $1 million investment portfolios. The core of our business, the most responsibility lies with collecting assets, building a portfolio, and managing that accordingly. There are other services that we have to offer to them. As far as the day-to-day, and every day is different. I'm in control of my schedule, so if I want to meet with 5 clients that day, that's up to me to put up. Sometimes clients will say, hey, I'd like to get together, and you react to that. But it's always best to be as proactive as you can and control that schedule and make sure that you're out meeting with the clients on a regular basis. But the more interaction on a day-to-day basis that I have, the better off I'm going to be with my clients, because then that's what they pay me to do, is to be in touch with them and make sure that they understand what's going on. So we do a lot of phone calls, a lot of discussion, trying to stay ahead of what they may have, what their needs may be, what's going on in their life, and finding solutions to those problems. That's the better part of it. I almost say that that's the easy part of it, because sitting down and talking to folks, it's the best part of it. They always have things to talk about, and it's that real relationship building. The other parts of it that aren't so exciting, but if you know anything about the financial services industry, highly regulated. We have a lot of compliance measures that we have to deal with. Takes up a decent part of the day. It's the worst part of the job, because it doesn't generate you any revenue. It only comes down to cost, and it eats up an awful lot of time. But they are things that absolutely have to be done. I know that there was some questions out there, or some folks who had looked into other industries or other businesses, only to find out that it's more of a sales type job. I can appreciate that, but I'm going to tell you one thing just to keep in mind, that every job you'll ever have requires salesmanship. Okay, every business that you'll ever have will always be about growing that business. Okay, so even if you're not in a sales position, or your job is not specifically to grow that business, know that responsibility falls on you one way or another. We're structured in a way that we have folks who are dedicated to sales, and we have folks who are dedicated to service. I am dedicated to service. I have clients. That's my role. However, I'm also expected to help those salespeople, provide them with potential opportunities. I'm also responsible for my own clients, asking them for opportunities, asking them for outside assets, and ultimately growing my business. I can't solely rely on the salespeople to be out there pounding the pavement, coming up with opportunities. In our business, the idea of cold calling doesn't necessarily exist in the purest of sense. I'm never going to go through the phone book and start prospecting names. I know that there have been times where we've gone out and bought leads based on some data that's out there. I would imagine that that's something that might come our way a little bit more frequently, particularly with the fact that when this is a data-driven economy anymore. There's so much data being tabulated, and if somebody's got the right type of software, they probably can come up with names or addresses or phone numbers that where they can identify folks that would be good fits for us. However, I think it's pretty difficult to call up somebody and say, hey, I'm in the business of managing multi-million-dollar portfolios. I'd like to sit down and talk with you. Well, if their advisor already is doing a pretty good job, which most of them are, that's kind of a waste of my time, because if somebody called my clients, I sure hope that they would say, I'm very satisfied and I'm very happy with the folks that I'm working with. So typically, the opportunities in our world exist when money's in motion. And money in motion can take on a number of different forms. Oftentimes, money's in motion, probably the best and probably the most biggest opportunities are when somebody sells a business. You're dealing with, if somebody's selling a big enough business, you're dealing with some pretty large sums of money. So that's one opportunity. Unfortunately, people pass away. Then there are inheritances. That's another big time when money is in motion. Another time is, again, not a pleasant opportunity, but not a pleasant situation, but people get divorced and somebody's writing a pretty big check sometimes. We've actually dedicated some of our research and some specific resources to those types of areas so that we're best prepared to be there in front of them. However, this is where the salesmanship, this is where the networking, this is where the relationship building comes into play. If I'm not front and center with that business owner before they sell their business, somebody already is. I'm never going to get that opportunity. So I need to know those people well enough in advance, establish trust with them, establish rapport, establish relationship with them, if I'm even going to get a shot at pitching them as to why they should work with my firm and not somebody else. Not as though you're out just pounding the pavements looking to meet with every wealthy and relationship with every wealthy married couple out there, but you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself. So one of the ways that we reach out in that vein is developing relationships and calling on family law attorneys. Working with professionals, whether it's a family law attorney or a business attorney or a trusted estates attorney, or an accountants, these are advisors that are in front of wealthy people on a regular basis. So it's important for us to talk to them so that when they have an opportunity with one of their client base, they'll at least say to that client, hey, if you're in need of this, I know Paul, and I think you should just meet with him. We call on the professional community pretty regularly, and I tell them, if you want to endorse me, that's great, I'll take that, but all I'm ever looking for is an at-bat. And the unique thing about that is you got to keep in mind too that it's not a one-way street. And I'm also looking for opportunities within my clients or within my network to return that favor to those folks. So it's kind of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So that's where a lot of those types of opportunities come about. And like I said, with inheritances, that's oftentimes calling on the legal community, whether that's usually the trusted estate attorneys who are settling those estates, knowing that money's in motion, and presumably going to a family member who may not have any type of financial advice or relationship established with anyone. And if it's a big enough sum, they're going to be very attentive or very cautious of that person to say, look, you really should get professional advice and not just try to do this on your own. I lose track of some of the things that I've said here, and I will make sure that I'm not repeating myself, but at the same time, I don't want to forget this. I think our industry, for the most part now, there's a lot of opportunity out there, simply because the general population, I just don't think they have a clue about money. We've talked about big purchases that we make in our lives. You go out and buy a car. I mean, I have a tough time, spending $100 on something, let alone try and go out and say, I'm going to go spend $20,000 on a car. People do it every day. Think nothing of it. All they worry about is, what's it going to cost me? Or what's my payment going to be? And I think if any of you have taken the personal financial class, you've talked about things like that. That's the absolute worst thing you could possibly do. Because I can assure you, the salesman is going to find a way to make that payment fit what you want. And if you do the math backwards, you'll find out you probably got taken quite well. It happens every day. People go out and buy a house. They just say, hey, I want that house. I want to live in that neighborhood. Again, let's manage a payment. Maybe not the best thing to do. Oftentimes they'll forget about other things like, oh, I got to furnish that place. Or what are the utilities going to cost? Oh, there's taxes involved. These are all things to be considered. And if you don't know these things, how are you ever going to, make a good decision? And a little bit of savings on a big number, again, is a big number. So the public out there needs our help, whether it's working in wealth management or if you're working in this industry on a more retail level. There's valuable services that people can have from you, and you as the professional and you as the expert that I know you'll all be. So I think that our industry is really, there's a lot of opportunity for you. The one thing I just think that we have to keep in mind too is that the robots are coming. It's going to take some time before they actually get here, and it remains to be seen whether or not that's going to be an acceptable means of actually managing the money. But I will tell you that the ability to interact human to human, be a good listener, understand what the problems are, and really seek out what a good solution. I don't know how any computer is going to do that, at least in our lifetimes. I think the artificial intelligence that's out there remains to be seen. If these driverless cars really work out, then maybe we'll have to recalibrate that thesis and see where they will go next. But again, humans make decisions, not always predictable decisions. So again, having good advice out there, I think is going to be around for a long time. So I think you've chosen a good field, and fortunately for you all, having the curriculum here that you have, I think you're going to be as best prepared or even better prepared than a lot of folks are, heading out from other schools. What else are y'all thinking about? How many here? I know that I've asked a couple of people. How many here have jobs lined up already? Anybody yet? Good. How about any interviews coming up? Good. Very good. Over prepare. Do your homework. Be yourself. Be ready to roll. Again, I'll throw that book name out again. It's called Knock 'em Dead. It seems like a daunting task, but again, there's a number of questions in there. You never know what kind of an interviewer you're going to get. There are firms that will interview and ask you these, for lack of a better word, trick questions. They're questions that are designed to elicit a specific type of an answer. And if you're not prepared for that, you could really blow it by just giving what you think might be the right answer when in fact it's the wrong answer. And I'm not saying that you're not being you'd be dishonest. The fact of the matter is you've got to know what that question is designed to bring out, and you've got to be prepared with the truth and the right way to answer that. So again, I don't know if that's a resource that's available, or those are types of the scenarios that you work on in your career center when you talk about or prepare for interviewing. But know that those are some types of questions out there that you could run into. I think that book does a great job. They update it as well, so you won't be getting the circa 1990 version that I have at home. A lot has changed since then.
Does anybody have any other questions you'd like to ask? All right.
Well, I will. You got a question? I'll let you button it up. I just want to say thank you. It's been a great day. Really excited to have met so many of you. Just know that this is every bit as rewarding and valuable to me. When I first found out what was going on up here, I got very excited about it, and all I ever said was keep me in the loop, try to keep me involved. And here we are again already. And again, didn't expect to have to run the whole day today, but fortunately that worked out, and hopefully I did a good enough job here for you all, and you found what we've had to say helpful. And I look forward to seeing you all again sometime and being a resource and hopefully providing some opportunities for some job opportunities.